So I've been a political observer my entire life. Even when I was a young kid, it was my favorite sport. Politics, football, and boxing were probably my three favorite sports to watch and to know about. And I had to know every detail. I had to know in baseball. In baseball, I knew everybody's batting averages. In politics, I knew everybody's position. And I learned early on, growing up in the inner city in New Jersey, that was Democrats ran unopposed. It was just they would always have primaries though, and I lived in a really tall apartment building, and we had storefronts below. We lived over storefronts, and they would always use them as campaign headquarters. So I used to always go down and ask a bunch of questions and pick everybody's brains. And I learned early on that most people are misinformed in politics, and it's real easy to win an argument when you know your opponent's argument better than they know it. And so that's always kind of been my way I operate my whole life. Is I learn my opponent's beliefs and why they believe them, and then I can argue more effectively. So, but the most important thing I learned about politics is never listen to what people say. Watch what they do. Again, in the inner city, I was surrounded by a lot of con artists, like con men that could con your face right off your head without you knowing it. So, always suspicious of people telling me stuff. So I watch what they do. Like for example, in the 70s, there was what back then was commonly known as born again Christian. Now they would probably call him an evangelical Christian governor of Georgia who became president. His name was Jimmy Carter. And just like all the born again Christians and evangelicals today, or most of them, he was opposed to abortion. And after he got elected, he became a friend of the abortion industry. His name was Jimmy Carter. That's why Reagan beat him 4 years later, because he lost the evangelical vote to Reagan. And on the flip side, you had George Bush come in and say he wants to overturn Roe v. Wade. The platform was really strong. We're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. And his first appointment, I believe it was his first appointment to the Supreme Court, was a woman, a pro-choice lawyer, his friend named Harriet Miers. Thankfully, the Heritage Foundation did opposition research on her and found out that she was pro-abortion, and that she was very weak in constitutional law. She was a good lawyer, like a personal lawyer for Bush, but she knew nothing about constitutional law. So they gave this information to the senators who had to confirm her. And they said, she don't know about this, you don't know about that. Like basically gave them the questions to ask her. And she bombed. She looked like a third grader talking about the Constitution. She bombed so bad talking to Republican senators that she resigned. And then the Republican senators and the Heritage Foundation and all us conservatives put pressure on Bush to give us a conservative judge, and that's when he gave us Alito. Now, I thought, actually, when Barack Obama was elected president, at this point, he was the most pro-abortion president. Up until him, he was the most pro-abortion president. When he was a senator in Chicago, state senator from Illinois, a woman came before the Illinois state senate, 100 senators, and told the story that happened in the Chicago hospital. She said she was an abortion nurse, and this baby was born alive, and she could heard it crying and gasping for air in the garbage where the doctor threw the baby. She picked up the baby that was intact, brought it to the doctor, said, "This baby's alive, you need to save it." He said, "No, it's marked for abortion, I can't." And she said she held that baby, I don't know, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, until that baby died. A painful death, not being able to breathe. And when she told that story, most of those Illinois senators cried, and she asked them to please pass a law that would prevent this. So they passed a law called the Baby Born Alive Act, that if that happened, the doctor was required to save the baby's life. Every senator but one voted in favor. Barack Obama voted against it because he was funded, bought and paid for by Planned Parenthood. That was the most barbaric, crazy thing I ever heard at the time. But now that is mainstream Democrat policies. I've heard Kamala Harris said she would have voted the same way Barack Obama did. Hillary Clinton said that a woman should be able to choose if her baby lives or dies, even if it's born. If she changes her mind within a few days of that baby being born, that baby should just be given something to kill it. This is a mainstream Democrat position right now. And getting back to comparing pro-life presidents to pro-abortion presidents, who's the most pro-abortion, who's the most pro-life? Up to that point, in my opinion, Ronald Reagan was definitely the most pro-life. He gave us pro-life judges. And he also was the first president to ban funding abortions worldwide. I had Dr. Alan Keyes, former presidential candidate, on the show, and he actually wrote the Mexico City policy for Ronald Reagan and was good friends with Ronald Reagan. And it was the first time that we had money, aid we would give to poor countries. And we say you can't use it for abortion, you can't promote abortion, you can't talk about abortion. And then, of course, when George Bush was elected, George Bush Sr. was elected, he kept that in place. And then Bill Clinton rescinded it, started giving money to them. And then George Bush Jr. Reinstated it. And then, of course, Barack Obama got rid of it, rescinded it. Then Donald Trump came in, and according to Dr. Alan Keyes, who wrote the policy, Trump expanded it because there were some loopholes they could use, other agencies might be able to use the money to promote abortion. So he said he majorly put a major expansion on the Mexico City policy where Americans weren't paying for abortions nowhere. He said this was very instrumental in saving lives, was huge. And of course, in the first day of Biden being president, he rescinds that. Bill Clinton refused to sign the partial birth abortion ban. That means we found out that some babies were too big to cut apart and pull out. It was easier just to pull their head out and then kill them while they were still alive, but their head was out, but their body was inside. And then they would chop them up when they were halfway out. It was a gruesome, barbaric way of killing a baby. And Planned Parenthood made a deal with Bill Clinton, said if you veto this Republican legislation to ban partial birth, we'll back you. But if you don't, we're going to stick up for all the women you raped. So they made a deal with them. And that's why they never got mad at the 20 women that claimed Bill Clinton raped them. And then George Bush signed it finally when he came in. Now, Barack Obama also increased funding to Planned Parenthood. It's a Title X program. They get a lot of money from this Title X program. Reagan tried his best to fund it. He was unable to do it. But George Bush, both of the Bushes, actually expanded the Planned Parenthood money going to Bush Sr. and Bush Jr. actually expanded the money going to Planned Parenthood. Donald Trump pushed it through. The liberals' heads exploded, where he took over the most he could do, and they fought it in court, and Trump was able to defund Planned Parenthood over $500 million from this Title X program. The first day Joe Biden comes in, boom, he not only rescinds that, but he adds more money going to Planned Parenthood. Barack Obama was trying to make people, companies, organizations, charities forced to pay for abortion and contraception through his Obamacare. That's how he was pushing it. So he had his Justice Department sue these Catholic nuns, Little Sisters of the Poor, and he persecuted them, and they were spending, the lawfare the Democrats used, they were spending so much money trying to defend this. They were trying to force these nuns to pay for contraception and abortion. And Trump comes in. Not only does he drop that lawsuit, he tells his Justice Department, leave the sisters alone, but he makes the law stronger for conscientious objectors to the law, that religious people don't have to take it. So the Little Sisters of the Number are safe. Little Sisters of the not poor are safe. But this is a quote from Joe Biden when he came in. This is in the Wall Street Journal. Hours after the Little Sisters of the Poor won again, they won at the Supreme Court, Joe Biden pledged to fight like hell to roll back conscientious protections for Catholic nuns and other religious employees that Trump put into place. But he's been unsuccessful, thank God. But, a lot of people are mad because the Republicans took out, they wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade. Well, Roe v. Wade was overturned, but they didn't mention that they wanted restrictions. They're just leaving it to the states. But Joe Biden doesn't want to leave it to the states. He says if Congress sends him a bill allowing abortion for whatever reason through the entire 9 months, he will sign it. Elizabeth Warren just the other day said if we get a simple majority in the Senate, we'll suspend the filibuster and codify Roe v. Wade and send it to the president if we win the House. This is their plan. Their plan is to win the House, the Senate, suspend the filibuster. And for my international subscribers, in the United States Congress, in the lower house or House of Representatives, you need a simple majority, like 51%, one vote, just one vote wins it, and they can pass a bill. But in the Senate, you need 60 out of 100 votes to pass anything other than judges for the Supreme Court, because the Democrats try to push some judges, so they changed that rule, and it actually backfired because Trump put in more judges in the Supreme Court than any president, so God is good. So a filibuster is when they can't get the 60 votes. So basically, they're going to suspend it, and they would have that power to suspend it just for that one vote to codify Roe v. Wade. So everybody's mad at Trump because he's saying he doesn't want a national restriction. He wants it to go to the states the way it is. Now, Joe Biden put in about 200 judges at the federal level. I think that's a couple dozen more than Trump was able to get in, even though Trump was able to get in 3 Supreme Court justices. But all these state bans are getting challenged with federal judges that Joe Biden put in effect. So, we got to fight that fight now. We know that every single judge that Trump put in, not only in the Supreme Court, but at the federal levels, were approved originalist judges from the Heritage Foundation. So what an originalist judges, they look at the Constitution, what was the original intent, and that's the law. What the liberals judges do, they look at the Constitution and say, well, this is what I think it should say based on 2024 liberal beliefs, and they change the law. So we need Trump in there to put judges that are going to uphold the law and not change the law. So up to this point, Reagan was the most conservative, but Trump promised to put 3 originalist judges in. He did, and he promised that they would overturn Roe v. Wade, because even liberal legal scholars know that that's bad law. So if you have judges that believe the Constitution, they're going to overturn it. And he was right. He did it. He overturned Roe v. Wade. Slam dunk. Should be a mic drop that he's the most conservative president. But a lot of people are getting mad because he's not saying with his mouth he wants restrictions, even though Bush said it with his mouth and he never got it. Reagan said it with his mouth and he never got it. The other Bush said it with his mouth and they never got it. No one ever got it. Trump's the only one that did anything for abortion other than the Mexico City policy that Reagan instituted, but he expanded it. And he promises to come in to reinstate the Mexico City policy again. And you can know what a man's going to do by what he's done. He did it before, he'll do it again. He's going to defund Planned Parenthood again. He said he'll do it, he'll do it again. He's going to put conservative judges in. We can trust he's going to put conservative judges in. I feel like I'm forgetting a few things that he's done. But I feel like I'm forgetting a few other things he's done for the pro-life community. But basically, he kept his promises to us. Now, every year, every cycle, rather, every 4 years, you'll get people on the left that say their guy's not liberal enough, so they'll run for president and take votes away from their guy. That's why I actually invited Cornel West on to help elevate him a little bit, to pull some votes from Biden. And he actually agreed to come on. He just keeps having excuses why he can't make it. So eventually he'll be on, I think. But then on the right, you always have conservatives are like, he's not pro-life enough. I'm more pro-life. Vote for me. And there's no chance that a third party, it's impossible. Get it out of your head. A third party candidate can never win. And most of them know it. They're just doing it for a publicity stunt or money. You know, some are true believers, I'm sure, but it never works. All it does is draw from someone who's closer aligned to them. So the choice is not between a perfect candidate and an imperfect candidate. The choice is between a better candidate. Who's the better candidate to help us get to where we want to get, to where there's no abortions? It's obvious Donald Trump was the most pro-life president we've ever had. Maybe he don't talk real good, you know, but his actions, what he's done, was definitely more pro-life than any president we had. Joe Biden is the most pro-abortion president we've ever had. His actions show it. So it's a choice between two people, you know. All the other person is going to do is draw votes away. And if you sit at home and you're a Christian, you're giving votes to the Democrats. It's easy. It's as simple as that, you know. The greatest example is when the fiscal conservatives, the fiscal conservatives gave a win to Bill Clinton. You know, Ross Perot got 19% of the vote. 80% of the people that voted for Ross Perot said if Ross Perot wasn't in, they would have voted for George Bush Sr. So, although George Bush Sr. was the most pro-life president, he was way more pro-life. He would have signed that bill preventing partial birth abortions, and he would have kept the Mexico City policy in place. But instead, you got an extremely pro-abortion draft dodger beat out a genuine World War II war hero. Well, So, because one man said he wasn't conservative enough fiscally, and people believed him. But now we know it was personal. Apparently, George Bush Sr. stole Ross Perot's girlfriend back in the day, and Ross Perot never forgave him and claimed he also beat him out of some money in business or whatever. So it was personal. But that's all third party. That was the most successful third party candidate. No one else ever comes close. But these elections are close. These elections usually are won by 1 or 2%, you know. So if you get 1 or 2% voting for someone who claims he's more pro-life and has never proved it, I mean, just his words are pro-life, but he was never in a position where he had to fight the establishment, fight the media to push it through. So you don't even know. Maybe this guy is saying everything we want to hear, but when he gets up there, he's going to be ineffective. We know Donald Trump, whether you like him, dislike him, love him, or hate him, he was very effective. He had everybody against him. He had the Republican establishment against him. He had the Democrats against him. He had the media against him. Had all the CIA, FBI, everybody was against him. And he still was the most effective president and got Roe v. Wade overturned, expanded the Mexico City policy, defunded Planned Parenthood, put former Catholic governor, devout Catholic governor, Sam Brownback, as the ambassador of a religious freedom that went around protecting religious freedoms, saying, listen, you persecute Christians, we're going to withhold money. This is how Trump fought wars and won. He didn't start no new wars. First president in my lifetime didn't start a new war because he knew the power of money. He knows about money. It's like, you're going to persecute Christians, we're not giving you the money. You're going to promote abortion, we're not giving you the money. And I am confident he will do this again. The pro-abortion forces are his enemies. They hate him. You know, so that's my take on it. And as Catholics, you know, we have no choice but to vote pro-life. We have no choice, you know. The church teaches us that we need informed consciences and we need to vote. If we have the freedom of vote, we need to vote, and we need to vote pro-life. According to the United States Catholic bishops, abortion is the most important issue when it comes to voting in America. In the Catholic Church for 2,000 years, you can read in the Didache, 50 AD, it's dated back, tells you abortion is a sin. Church history, tradition, you know abortion is a sin. Pope Francis said it's the gravest of mortal sins. So as a Catholic, it's your responsibility to vote. It's your responsibility to vote pro-life. And if you're voting for a pro-life guy because he says the right things, but he has no chance of winning, that's very irresponsible with your vote. Very irresponsible with your vote. It's throwing your vote away. So that's my opinion. I could be wrong. This is my opinion. God bless and stay Catholic.